So Formula One will be taking to the streets of Las Vegas. But they are not the first ones to race on the streets of Las Vegas, as the 2007 Champ Car season kicked off on the streets of Las Vegas. However, it was not on the Strip or in the Strip area in Paradise. It was in actual downtown Las Vegas near Fremont Street. This is a race that I honestly feel like gets overlooked by many IndyCar fans and quite frankly forgotten about, even though one of the sport's all-time greats got his first career win in this one. The 2007 Champ Car season also had a whole slate of changes, including the car itself, the new Panos DP01, which all the teams were driving, as well as some interesting rule changes, the big one being timed races, which in my opinion is kind of weird, and the other having the field more staggered on the starts of the race, in hopes of not having so much chaos. And we would see that one come into effect pretty much right off the bat. The track also featured a rather interesting makeshift chicane at the end of one of the straightaways, and the reason being, the track goes abruptly downhill under a tunnel, and if they didn't have that chicane in there, the cars would literally take off from that transition, so they had to slow them down before they got there. Will Power would be on pole for the race, and he would share the front row with Paul Tracy.
The field coming to the green in 2007.
I don't think they're going to get it that time.
Nope.
And one of the reasons that they wouldn't give the green is they wanted to have a staggered start. They did not want the traditional side-by-side, so they weren't following the race director's directions.
Well, I don't think a lot of the guys in the back were up to the grid yet. I mean, we only had 8 or 9 cars there that were trying to be staggered. I think, like we saw that in-car shot of Graham Rahal, he was trying to get up to the field. But yeah, you know, the stagger. If we're starting side by side, I'm not going to stagger. I'm sorry. You can tell me all you want, but I'm going to try to get up as far as I can. So this is going to be interesting to see if they can really pull off a staggered start.
As you can see there, hopefully Wally Dolan back there gave you some insight on what exactly a staggered start is, but essentially what the officials want is the cars to kind of be lined up like how an F1 grid is lined up, except rolling and not at a standstill. So we have to go around and try that again.
That's about all you're going to get from Paul Tracy.
And Paul Tracy's gone around the outside. Oh, whoa! That was Rahal. Rahal's been in the wall.
Graham Rahal, the 18-year-old, making his debut. That's turn 1. Field trying to funnel through. Sebastian Bourdais back there. And there is the car of Graham Rahal up against the wall.
And I'm not so sure. We'll see with the replay. But you know, this track's had a lot of dirt on it. Even after the cars have run, you know, the groove was good. But you can see when a car gets offline, there's a lot of dust flying. I wonder if he just got in that loose stuff.
I don't know, to me that start did look very staggered to me. In fact, the first one was probably better with how spread out the field was. But they threw the green flag anyways, and unfortunately for Graham Rahal making his debut, he would not even make it to turn 1 in his first IndyCar race.
Now we can ride along with Rahal.
Looking to see if he gets pinched. There was Dan Clark to his left, but I think, Wally, what you were talking about earlier, that is the portion of the racetrack that didn't have a lot of running, and it was dirty.
Yeah, that was a dirty part of the racetrack. You could see that the car came over on him a little bit, and he reacted a little bit, and when he reacted, he got in that loose stuff.
Unfortunately, things wouldn't get much better when they came back to green, as they wouldn't even make it to see the green flag before more trouble would strike, as Alex Figge would get spun around while the field navigated that chicane.
Is that Figge possibly?
Yes, indeed.
Car, Alex Figge.
His car sitting in the middle of the track, and the green flag is out.
Oh, now that's a block right there, John. We were talking about that earlier, too. What's the rule on that in Champ Car racing now?
You can't make any moves at all, so the stewards will be looking to see. I assume that was Doornbos, who certainly was a black and red car that appeared to move over, was a challenge from behind, and they'll look at that carefully up in race control.
Tracy in the blue and white number 3 car right there. There's your race leader. Then Will Power. The caution flag is out. Full course yellow.
I'm sure Figge couldn't get that car started, and that's why.
The flashing orange light that you can see above him is what they're going to use for pit closure. So you may not pit at this point until that light goes out.
That car with an issue.
And, oh, we ran into the back of his teammate. It's Ryan Dial.
Right.
It was one of the traffic jam. That's what happens. The cars, they all check up to go through the chicane, and it's kind of the accordion effect. It feels like the person, it probably happened to you on the highway, somebody gets on the brakes, and it's the accordion effect as you get back down through the field.
Although the race hasn't seen a single green flag lap yet, three-time defending series champion Sebastian Bourdais was already running into issues, as his team was pitting to top up on fuel, but they also discovered he had a slow leak in his left rear tire, so they took care of that, as well as an issue with his water bottle inside the race car not working, which can be an issue in that brutal Las Vegas heat. Paul Tracy would lead the field back to green.
And here comes Paul Tracy, and wow, look at them. They light him up at slow speed. Wow, that's exciting. That's almost like a standing start.
Nearly 190 miles an hour when they get into turn one. Tracy, then Will Power.
Here comes Dorn Boss.
Oh, nice move. That was a beautiful out-braking move right now. Oh, a little bit of contact there.
Justin Wilson appeared to get hit from behind in the CDW machine.
On board now with Wilson.
Here's the roughest part of the racetrack right here. You got to be really careful when you brake right here because the cars bounce up and down off the racetrack and you're downshifting and braking at the same time. When these guys get a lot of laps on these tires, we're going to see some issues there.
And it's worth talking about right now that some of the drivers might be using the Cosworth power to pass. Marty told us about that briefly when he was showing the steering wheel. You get 60 seconds of an extra burst of power, 18 seconds of additional 50 horsepower, but you can only use a total of 60 seconds in an entire event. Everybody has the same amount. You have to choose when you want to use it. Sometimes when the cars are this close together, it's a great time to try it.
We would finally get some green flag racing in, and going into turn number 1 on lap 11, Will Power would make the move on Paul Tracy and take over the lead of the race, as Paul Tracy did his best to defend there, but could not hold off the Aussie, who took full advantage of push to pass here. While Power and Tracy distanced themselves from the field, racing back in the pack was pretty aggressive as Neil Johnny would make this crazy 3-wide move on Mario Dominguez and Justin Wilson and would make it work and take the positions. However, one lap later, the yellow flag would come out once again as Dan Clark buried his Team Minardi USA Panos into the tire barrier.
And he was in trouble
way back.
Yeah. That's a tricky part of the track, and it got Dan Clark.
Some drivers would elect to come to pit road under this yellow, like third-placed Alex Tagliani, but leaders Will Power and Paul Tracy would stay out on the racetrack. And Sebastian Bourdais would continue to have tire trouble, as this time his right rear tire would have a puncture in it, but thankfully he made it to pit road under this yellow.
The field rolls through the chicane, then under the tunnel. Those are great seats right there. Those fans get to see some big action. Green flag coming out.
Wow,
what happened to Paul Tracy?
I was going to say, I figured Tracy was going to have a real good opportunity here on the restart to take the lead back. But
look at Junqueira.
Bruno Junqueira looking to the inside. Tracy holds him off.
I think Will Power caught Paul Tracy sleeping a little bit on that restart.
Could have been a gear change. It almost looked as though, since everyone but Paul Tracy, because that's so atypical, that would not happen to Paul Tracy. He is usually the king of restarts.
I was expecting him to be the lead going to turn 1 on this restart.
Again.
Yeah.
Despite the number of cautions at the beginning of this race, we did not know it at the time, but that would actually be the final yellow of the entire race, and we would see nothing but green flag racing from here to the end. On lap 21, we would see Justin Wilson pull off into a runoff area with unfortunate gearbox issues that would end up putting an end to his race. Thankfully, he was well out of the way, and the safety team was able to pull his car off the track without bringing out a yellow flag. On lap 24, Sebastian Bourdais' quest to puncture all 4 tires on his car at some point during the race would continue, as he would get a right front tire puncture due to contact with the outside wall, costing him several spots as he had to limp back to pit road. On lap 28, we would see leaders Will Power and Paul Tracy both dive for pit road, as the two have distanced themselves from the field quite nicely, but have not been on pit road yet during this entire race, while the majority of the rest of the field has. This would give the lead to Alex Tagliani. Sebastian Bourdais' horrible day would go from bad to worse, as he would break a toe link and make contact with the outside wall, severely damaging the front wing and front left suspension. He tried to limp his car back around to the pits, but was ultimately asked to pull over at a safe area and retire the car, as the team did not want to risk any further damage, as they needed to race that car the next race at Long Beach. So Sebastian pulled off, and this would bring an end to Sebastian Bourdais' day, but the green flag would remain out on the racetrack. Unfortunately, no replay was shown of Sebastian Bourdais' incident. On lap 39, leader Alex Tagliani would come in for a routine green flag pit stop, bringing the other front runners on the same strategy along with him, handing the lead back over to Will Power. A few laps later though, on lap 42, Simon Pagenaud, who's Will Power's teammate, who was running second behind Alex Tagliani for most of that run, would have to bring his car back down pit road, and the team would have to go under the engine cover to diagnose an engine problem, but unfortunately there was no fix during the race, and this would cause Simon Pagenaud to retire. His teammate Will Power, who was leading the race, would come in on lap 45, surrendering the lead temporarily to Bruno Junqueira, as the team was desperate to get this car filled with fuel, as they were trying to make it all the way to the end from this point here, as they were not planning to come back to pit road. The angle that Will Power came in kind of threw his pit crew off guard there, and he knocked over his front tire changer, and they had a little trouble getting that tire on. But as you'll see here, it takes so long to fill this thing up with fuel that it didn't really matter, and they could take their time getting the tires on that car. After Bruno Junqueira would hit pit road, that would hand the lead over to Paul Tracy, and Paul Tracy was putting in some very quick lap times as Will Power came out of the pits right behind Tracy, but Paul Tracy immediately began to pull away. And that's what Paul Tracy needed to do, run the quickest lap times possible, as this race was starting to look like a fuel mileage race, and Paul Tracy's team didn't think he can make it to the end from here. Will Power would start reeling in Paul Tracy once again, and on lap 56, the team decided to bring Paul Tracy down pit road to get the fuel that he needed to make it to the end, and was instructed to go as hard as he could after this pit stop, and it now became a question on whether Power could actually make it to the end. Now I know this is a street circuit, but part of the track was starting to look like it had street parking, as Neil Yanni suffered a gearbox failure and pulled over near the same opening that Sebastian Bourdais' car was sitting, as it was still on the side of the track. Once again, no yellow was thrown, and both cars would live here until the end of the race. Simultaneously as this was happening, Alex Figge would go off into a runoff area and would end up stalling the car. The safety team would come out though, pull him back, get him refired, and he would continue on in the race without further incident. Over the next couple of laps, the time would continue to tick away as Will Power continued to hold the lead and would take the white flag with just over a minute left on the clock.
Last lap here at Las Vegas. Will Power, the race leader. An 18-second lead over Durenboss.
It sounds like he's saving fuel right now. I mean, when he went through the chicane that time, normally he was just lighting it up, and boy, he really laid the throttle down easy. In fact, I don't know who that is trying to catch him right there.
That's Bruno.
Bruno Junqueira.
But it looks like he's taking it easy this lap.
Well, you would, even if you had fuel. But you don't want to push it when you have an 18-second lead. But he was calling back. What'd you say? I want to be sure I get it right. He is so mild-mannered, but he gets with it in the race car. As far as personality-wise, he's pretty laid back. But you know what? When he had his qualifying time here yesterday, he was all fired up. But just walking around the paddock talking to him, he's very unassuming.
Past the hotels and the casinos in downtown Las Vegas for the final time.
I think Marty asked him this morning, didn't he?
Yeah.
You can qualify. You've got what it takes to win a race.
Yep. And he said he thought they were there. Derek Walker looking for his first Champ Car Series win since 1999. Out of the tunnel, up the hill for the final time. The Champ Car season begins in Las Vegas, and Will Power is the winner.
Got it, Will. You got it. Well done. Fantastic job, Will. Fantastic.
Will Power starting the 2007 Champ Car season off strong, picking up his first career IndyCar victory and the first ever for an Australian-born driver. Such an amazing day for one of the sport's all-time greats. And despite Will Power getting the win, I just feel like this is a race that kind of slips under the radar and a lot of people forget even happened and is hardly ever brought up. But with all the hype and I guess negativity of Formula One coming to Las Vegas and racing down the strip, it reminded me of this race and I felt like I needed to cover it on the channel. That's going to wrap up today's video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in as always. Make sure to subscribe to my channel for more motorsports history videos just like this. And make sure to leave a comment to let me know your thoughts on the race. That's all for now, and I'll see you guys next week. Take care, everybody.